My story: I had my weekly therapy session last night recounting my various traumas again, and he suggested I write them out in detail, so obviously trigger warning here and probably NSFW. So, apologies for the long post in advance. Here goes. The first time I remember feeling sexual was when I was around 6, seeing my dad in the shower. It wasn't an attraction to him and nothing ever happened with him, but it was the first time I remember being aroused by a man. Being in a very Pentecostal Christian family, I eventually became aware of how sinful I was and how I was never going to heaven. So, abuse 1: religious abuse. Result: shame, guilt, self-hatred. I was about 11-12 when I started playing with a neighbor friend. We were about the same age and his family life was not great, so he spent a lot of time with me. We eventually became really good friends and, like most kids do, started experimenting sexually with each other. My little kid mind loved him and knew he was the only person I was able to be my true self with. This continued for about a year until he suddenly moved away and I was devastated. About that time I was staying at my grandparents' house and a distant cousin was visiting, staying there too. For some reason I don't remember, we were alone in the house. I was sleeping over and at some point in the night I awoke in a strangely uncomfortable pain. The cousin, can't even remember his name, had gotten in bed with me. He was naked and started fondling my asshole, eventually putting a finger or two inside me, thus the awakening. I was shocked at first and tried to get away, but he, early 20s, wrapped me in his arms, kissing my neck, telling me he thought I was handsome and that he wanted to show me how much he loved me. Again, little kid brain me was craving an escape from my isolation and wanting to feel something, anything, so I submitted. I was instantly hard as a rock, and I think he took that as evidence of my willingness. The next thing I remember is feeling something wet on my hole, followed by an intense pressure. I was, geez, kinda what wasn't I? Nervous, anxious, scared. If I didn't do it right, would he still love me? I felt a searing pain and a sensation I hadn't known before as he slowly entered me. I do have to say, for my first time, I was certainly lucky to have a gentle experience. But little kid brain kicked in again and I immediately felt dirty, sinful, unlovable, and wrong. I cried in silence as he slowly built up to finishing inside me. When he was done and pulled out, I heard him gasp and ask me if I was okay, to which I didn't answer and just kept sobbing. He kissed me and left the room. I curled up into a ball, still in intense pain but feeling like I deserved it because I wanted it, and cried myself to sleep. It wasn't until the next morning I figured out why he gasped. The bed was covered in my blood, and even more humiliating, my cum. I hadn't even registered that I'd climaxed. There had been so much pain. I got up, went to the bathroom, and cleaned up as best I could and took the bloody sheets off the bed. I have no idea where my 12-year-old brain came up with the idea, but my grandfather used to smoke fish in a little shack in the backyard and I took the sheets out there and burned them. I still wonder if my grandmother wondered why there were no sheets on my bed the next day. My grandparents were back from wherever, and my parents came over to pick me up. We all sat down to breakfast with my cousin sitting next to me, his hand on my thigh under the table. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. Abuse 2: molested by a cousin. Result: self-hatred, fear, shame, humiliation. Couple of years later, around 13 years old, my cousin, a different one older, around my dad's age, invited my dad and me to join him and his son on a homecoming cruise. He was a pretty high-ranking enlisted Navy guy. So we went to the ship, an aircraft carrier. I was a huge airplane geek and settled into the crew cabins. Basically, it was a large bay of bunk beds, but it felt like the coolest thing I had ever done. We got toured around the ship, met the captain, saw some planes take off and land. It was like dream camp. The first night was interesting, seeing what seemed to my 13-year-old brain like a porn video. Not that I had any experience seeing a porn video at that point, of hundreds of hunky sailors in their underwear, joking and wrestling with each other, using salty language very forbidden in my Christian family, and generally just being guys. It was like I was in a fantasy land. I remember going to sleep that night with a raging hard-on. The next night we had a formal dinner with everyone. It was great, but eventually I had to use the bathroom. The only one I knew about was in the bunk quarters, so I headed down there. I went in and started to use the urinal when I heard a couple of loud sailors come in, laughing and joking about the stupid kids they had to put up with. Then they saw me. This one is a bit blurry, I think because I was literally fearing for my life. The next thing I remember is being thrown up against the sink, bent over, and my pants being pulled down. Again I felt that pressure but knew what was coming and tried to squeeze as hard as I could to keep him out. It didn't work and I felt him enter me. Thankfully, maybe because I was a kid, he was somewhat gentle and must have been seriously pent up because he pushed it in me once and came immediately. I was trying to be strong and was glad it was over, I thought. When the second guy pushed his way inside me, it was a lot more painful with him and I started crying. The first guy must have got hard again seeing what he was seeing and told me to suck him. He said if I hurt him he'd kill me and throw my body overboard. I did what he said. It tasted like blood and shit, which made me feel sick and heave. He said if I barfed on his dick he'd kill me. Again, thankfully he didn't last long, came in my mouth and told me to swallow it, which I did. Seeing and hearing this, the other guy started pumping me quickly, telling his friend he was about to come in the faggot. He did, and when he pulled out I was afraid he was going to make me suck him too, but he didn't. I was terrified at this point that they'd go ahead and kill me so I wouldn't talk, nobody would find my body. I fell to the floor shaking and sobbing, and the first guy said if I said anything to anyone they'd kill me and my father. He said they knew who I was and that I was the one who wanted them to do what they did, pointing to the fact that I came again, don't remember doing that, probably because of the pain. They pointed me to the shower and told me to clean my bloody ass and then left. I showered, got dressed in my PJs and curled up in my bunk where I stayed for the next 3 days faking being sick. Abuse 3, gang raped. Result, fear of death, humiliation, self-hatred. Fast forward a bit to high school junior year, I was 16 at a Christian school. I'm socially awkward band geek. My one friend during my sophomore year became cool over the summer and stopped hanging out with me. Gay kid at a Christian school and I had a bully. He was the most popular guy in my class and he made my life a living hell. I usually was able to avoid him outside of classes, and being a band geek I was able to get out of gym class because, for whatever reason, marching band counted for PE, thank God. But in my junior year they changed the rules and I had to take regular PE shopping for a jock strap with my mother was another level of hell. But that's another story for another time / subreddit. So the stereotype of the gay kid doing sports, I was the proverbial, oh he's at bat, everyone moving kid. Of course the bullying only got worse now, including the entirety of the PE class. It didn't matter if I was the direct cause, I was always the one who got blamed for whatever. Game loss, miss ball, being in the way, anything and everything. The coach just kinda hung his head with me. He tried and he was actually a pretty nice guy, but it was for nothing. My particular hell was the locker room. Just having to get naked and shower with a room full of bullies was like being raped every day. One day it actually went there. I had done something heinous on the field, don't remember exactly what, it was probably completely nothing, but the coach got exasperated and sent me to the showers early. I was humiliated but kinda thankful that I could get out of having to do the locker room routine without everyone else. I got out of my gym clothes and got into the showers, one big room with shower heads on the walls. No privacy whatsoever. I had my head under the water and heard the class start filtering in. It was early, coach had let them all out early. I panicked. I thought if I leave the shower now I'll be the only one naked and they'll destroy me. At least when everyone else is naked we're all on somewhat even footing. So I just stayed in the shower as guys started coming in, one by one giving me the evil eye. Then my bully comes in and takes the shower right next to me. This kinda interests everyone because usually he groups with his friends and they all make fun of me as a group, but this time he's right next to me. He actually says hi and starts his shower like a normal person. I'm feeling confused, nervous, but somehow optimistic that he became a human and felt bad for me. That didn't last long. Out of the blue he sucker punched me in the side of my head and I fell to the floor seeing stars. He kinda clipped my ear and it was ringing but I could hear the room laughing. Now I'm scared. He starts talking about how my ass looks like the girl he fucked the weekend before and that I'd probably been giving it to the senior football team all year. Again laughter. He says he knows I've been drooling to have his cock in me all year and that he knows how to treat faggots like me. Laughter mixed with, yeah, treat him like the fucking cocksucker he is. A bit of a blur for me on how long this all went on, but eventually two of my bully's friends came over. I'm still on the shower floor at this point and one of them kicked me in the ribs. I curled up in pain but felt them picking me up and pinning me to the wall. I heard them saying, yeah, get hard dude, talking to my bully, and fucking rip his cunt open. Unfortunately for me, this time was not a gentle cousin or somewhat aware sailor. This time I felt like a branding iron had been shoved inside me. I tried to struggle but the two who had me pinned to the wall would hit me when I did. My bully went fully in then all the way out then back all the way in, spitting on me and telling me what a faggot I was. That mixed with the laughter, the egging on the dude he likes it. I was openly sobbing, shaking, in a massive amount of pain when I heard the chant start, cum 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 cum. One last thrust and my bully came inside me to cheers from my classmates. The last thing I heard before he slammed my head into the shower wall was, dude look he's bleeding like a whore on her period. To more laughter. I wasn't out for long but I came to on the shower floor as the entire class filed by to spit on me. I didn't dare move until they were all done dressing and gone. Once they were I painfully cleaned myself up as best I could, got dressed, went to the band room, I had a key and cried the rest of the day. They actually sent a teacher out to search for me since I missed my last 3 classes. When my band teacher found me he asked me what was wrong and I told him I was just being teased and wanted to get away for a bit. I never told him or anyone. I don't know how I showed my face the rest of the year, but I constantly had to look into the faces of everyone. I'm sure someone told all the girls too knowing they knew. My bully would just smile and blow kisses at me. I should say at this point that the coach was called into a teacher-parent meeting after I was sent into the lockers and he put yep, you guessed it, my bully in charge. Abuse 4 raped by my bully. Result, humiliation, fear, shame, self-hatred, suicidal. Not long after this is when I made my first suicide attempt. I tried to hang myself in my bedroom closet with a belt. There was no last-minute desire to live and when I came to on the floor of my closet with the broken rod around me in pieces I cried like I hadn't cried before. I wanted to die and I couldn't. It was a sadness like I'd never known before. Oh, and I was punished for breaking the closet. But this isn't a suicide story. My life somewhat levels out at this point. I forced my parents to send me to a different school for my senior year, which they did and had a good year. I went on to college, then the Air Force. It was there that I officially came out to myself after meeting and subsequently breaking up with a Navy guy Freudian. That prompted my second suicide attempt, same method, same result. Little did I know that military closet rods are designed to fail. But again, not a suicide story. This, however, prompted me to come out to my family and friends, to be honest with myself after all these years and damn the consequences. I got out of the military not long afterwards, honorable discharge, not related to being gay, and started my gay life. So a couple of guys in my life, some short-term, some longer, and I eventually met my future husband. In 20 years of being together, you can imagine there have been lots of ups and downs. One such down happened last year. I live with sadness, regret, anger, hatred, rage, humiliation, shame, and among other things, self-harm. I'd hidden it from my husband for many years, but finally got to the point where I just couldn't take his life being ruined because of me. I left, got my own place, and proceeded to get a front row seat to my downward spiral. I started self-harming on a daily basis. I drank to pass out every day. I started doing random hookups with anonymous people. I started cruising public parks. One hookup started out meeting a guy I had chatted with for a couple of days. I met him at his hotel room and we talked for a bit more. He seemed like a nice guy and we had a couple of drinks just chilling out. The last thing I remember is him telling me maybe I should lie down, maybe just take your shoes off and relax. I remember feeling cold. After the fact I knew it was because I was naked, and hearing the door to the room squeak, someone coming or going, I don't know. When I woke up, the room was dark, empty, and I was naked on the bed. I tried to get up and was groggy but knew what had just happened. I went to the bathroom, turned on the light, and almost didn't recognize myself in the mirror. Blood and cum were dripping down my legs. Cum, blood, and shit were all over my face. Blood and cum on my back, bloody left hand. It was a nightmare. I didn't want to shower there, I just wanted to get out of there as quickly as I could, so I cleaned up the visible parts of me in the sink and went back to the room to get my clothes. The scene was frightening. Blood on the comforter, pillows, sheets, floor, empty lube containers, empty bottles of alcohol. My underwear was ripped off apparently, so I put my clothes on without them and put them in my pocket. Didn't want to leave any evidence of me there. I walked back to my place feeling like the disgusting piece of shit I knew myself to be. I showered and poured myself a red cup full of straight vodka which I downed in 3 gulps. The icing on the cake was I got a message from a semi-regular hookup a couple of hours later and went out and fucked him that same night. Abuse, who knows? Result, extreme self-hatred, humiliation, shame, extreme suicidal. I kept on hooking up, drinking, and spiraling towards the inevitability of my death by my own hands. Then came one night where my husband came over. He was worried about me, but I was drunk, hurt, angry, ashamed, disgusted. We argued and I ended up hurting him badly to the point of multiple surgeries thanks Air Force training. I'll stop. I'm not that person. I'm not someone who can do that. I won't victimize someone else because I've been victimized. I apologized profusely over months and we eventually found a way back to each other. But the drugged gang rape was the catalyst to bring everything in the past back to the forefront. I became and am extremely suicidal. I've sat on the railing of my balcony many times contemplating jumping, looking for a reason not to. All that prompted me to get into therapy, and we're finally full circle. I can't say I've completely found a reason not to jump yet, but I'm still here and trying for something I can't even begin to fathom. But that's my story.